The topic here today, cracking the code, family conversations about estate planning. And let's reframe how we think about this and how we talk about estate planning, because it's truly extraordinary what we can accomplish when we communicate. The how, the when, the what of communicating about estate planning, but let's talk about this from an adult child to parents perspective. Hopefully your parents are still around, depending on what your age are. And what do we need to talk about? For us adult children, we need to talk to our parents about this. And here's how we're framing this. How can we initiate and frame this talk? When is a good time to do it? And what are the critical topics that we should bring up? How do we initiate these conversations as the kids talking to our parents about it? Well, here's how not to do it. Hey, mom and dad, what am I gonna get when you're gone? I kind of need to know, like, am I gonna get the house? Like, I want to know what I'm going to get, just so I just want to know. Tell me what I'm going to get. That's a terrible way to do it. It shouldn't be about you. The first thing I would advise is it has to be about your parents first, and then about the family as the whole. And it should be framed around hopes and dreams and wishes and fears. What are you worried about, mom and dad? How can we make sure that we have a plan that we're communicating together to make sure your worst fears don't happen? Is your worst fear that you have to go live in an assisted living facility and can't get taken care of at home? And let's talk about what your hopes and dreams are on the other side of that. What are your goals for your own journey, the last stages of your life, the next stages of your life? What are your visions and goals for your kids, for my generation and for the next generation, your grandkids? And that's a wonderful way to frame it. And it makes it much more about shared visions and dreams. Now, if you know it's a larger estate, we may need to think about estate tax planning. But a lot of the steps that parents take are really there for the benefit of the kids. They don't affect themselves that much. If you create a dynasty trust, or if you do property tax planning, that's not about the parents, it's about the kids. So it's really important we bring these up. Now, when is a good time to do this? Well, I think one thing, any major family event, a major health problem, if there's a health scare for a parent or a health scare for a child. We have many adult children. We have our own health problems at times. That's a good time to bring this up. The birth of a child, or a grandchild, that's a wonderful time to bring it up. And I think family holidays, when everybody's gathered together, I think it's a great idea generally to have moments where you talk about gratitude and what you're all thankful for. That also can be a great segue into having family discussions around your estate plan. But again, don't use the word estate plan. Let's talk about our legal plan as it pertains to our shared hopes and dreams, and as it pertains to empowering each other to help each other out. Now, what do you need to talk about? Topics can be endless. One is your successor trustee. Are you named am I the adult child? Hey, mom and dad, let me take a step back. The first question I would ask is, do you have an estate plan? Because if you don't, that's a big problem. If mom and dad don't have an estate plan, who's going to be dealing with the mess that's created? It's the adult children, right? They're going to be the ones having to go to court to get court orders or conservatorship to get the power to help mom and dad if they need it. They're going to be the ones stuck in court with probate because mom and dad didn't have a properly designed living trust. They're going to be the ones who don't have any asset protection, who face massive tax bills down the road. So the first topic is, do you have an estate plan? I think that's absolutely critical. But two, if mom and dad do have an estate plan, hey, who's named as trustee? Is it me? Am I going to be stepping in next? Or have you thought about this? Did you set up the plan many years ago? Is it up to date? Did you name a friend who's no longer even around? We have a lot of clients who they set up their plan years ago. Their kids were still young. Their kids aren't even named as trustees, but the kids get older. They're responsible. Maybe it makes sense to name the kids now. What are your hopes and dreams, mom and dad? What do you want when it comes to long-term care? By the way, when you talk about long-term care and the need for making sure that you're well taken care of down the road, you might have to talk about finances. You might have to talk about what you have in the way of bank savings, investments, and all that.
I think what I want to do is emphasize what you said, because I so appreciate what you said about hopes and dreams. It's just not that common for kids to ask their parents about that. There's assumptions made so often, and those assumptions don't always mesh with reality. And it also forces the parents to think about our hopes and dreams because, you coast along, you're feeling good, you're not ill. And it is good to think these things through, but it doesn't come up naturally. So finding a pathway to make the parents think about what they want, where it's, challenging thoughts, right? And then how to communicate those to the kids and getting the kids on board.
But then the next stage is really talking about asset protection. Because let's be honest, if mom and dad worked hard and you know that your parents have a house that they've had for a long time, or if you're fortunate enough to have multiple properties. Well, if we live in California, we need to be aware of Prop 19 and the fact that without planning, property taxes could spike by tens of thousands of dollars per year if we don't take steps to plan. And our firm, Gilfix and the Pole, we've helped hundreds of families with Prop 19 planning. We can keep property taxes low, but if you don't plan, mom and dad's hard-earned home, rental property, they might go away because we adult children might not be able to afford the property taxes if they spike up. And we've had many adult children actually pay the legal fees for the protections to lock in the low property taxes because, again, we're the ones who benefit. It's not mom and dad who get hit by Prop 19, it's the kids. Other issues, if you have a child with special needs, if mom and dad haven't haven't coordinated with your plan to make sure that assets go to the special needs trust, or if something happens to me as the adult child and money goes from me and via me down to the next generation, if there's a child with special needs or other issues, we need to make sure that mom and dad's estate plan is coordinated with all that we communicate. Tax planning, asset protection plan. We talk a lot about family protection trusts. We have many adult children who have paid for mom and dad to update their estate plan. So mom and dad create a dynasty trust, a family protection trust for the adult child, because I would rather the money, I don't want to inherit money directly. I want it to go to a trust that protects me from divorce, from lawsuits, and from future estate taxes. Or provides a high level of protection against those things. So if mom and dad create a family protection trust for me, my inheritance has some barriers and some really powerful protections. That's another topic that we think adult children should really bring up is mom and dad, have you thought about more enhanced planning? So really crucial for adult children to talk to their parents about this. What about other family members? What about aunts or uncles or siblings? And when should they be brought in? And Mike, any thoughts there?
This can be obviously more challenging. And at the same time, I think it's easier. It depends on the family circumstances. Where there is an aunt or an uncle or a godparent, if they don't have kids, and you think there's some reason to believe that they may be leaving something to your kids or to you if you are that niece or nephew, harder to have this discussion unless you're really, really close. I don't mean physically, but I mean emotionally really close to these relatives. But again, it's good to know if you can possibly raise it. The parent can have that discussion, I think, with the sibling, the aunt or the uncle of your child. And this comes up all the time when kids are surprised they inherit something, or they're surprised that they don't inherit something. And they're doing some of their life planning depends on an inheritance from Aunt Joan that they're not going to get. So coordinating it. In particular, this is important when you have a special needs child, because you may have created the special needs trust for your child who's on the autism spectrum, some other issue. And here's that Aunt Joan that I mentioned, and she's leaving $100,000 directly to that child. That can mess up eligibility for government benefits and create chaos in the short term. So making sure that they know about the planning that you've done for your kids so that they make everything fit together so that nothing comes into conflict. Grandparents need to coordinate their planning with their kids for their grandkids. We talk about 529 plans, money for education. We love these crummy trusts where you can put money into a trust for a grandkid and let it grow for decades. All these things that can be done that are ideally done from a multi-generational perspective. But again, everybody has to talk.
And if you want to meet with us, very easy to do it. Gilfix.com, 650-493-8070. Please spread the word, subscribe to our channel, comment. If you're watching this on YouTube, comment. Give us a question there as well. As my mom likes to say, hope everybody stays safe, sane, and healthy.